Once upon a time, in a cheerful little town, surrounded by rolling green hills and streets lined with maple trees, there lived a girl named Lily. Lily was the kind of person who believed the best in everyone. She smiled easily, forgave quickly, and always showed up, even for people who forgot to show up for her. She was known at school as the nice one, the one who'd lend you a pencil, share her lunch, or listen when no one else would. And she had a group of friends, or at least she thought she did. There was Sophie, the confident one who always took the lead, Tara, who followed Sophie's every move, and Mia, who sometimes laughed a little too quickly at jokes that hurt. Lily adored them, even when their friendship made her feel like she was walking barefoot on glass, careful not to say the wrong thing, careful not to fall behind. They hung out every weekend, took selfies under fairy lights, and posted captions like "Besties Forever." From the outside, it looked perfect, but inside, Lily felt something off, a feeling that her laughter wasn't being heard, that her presence didn't really matter when the photos ended. One day, that feeling turned into proof. It was a Friday afternoon when Lily walked into the cafe near school holding 3 milkshakes, one for each of her friends. They were supposed to meet to plan Sophie's birthday, but when she looked around, her stomach dropped. There they were, Sophie, Tara, and Mia, sitting at a booth by the window, laughing, sharing fries, and snapping pictures. Without her. She froze for a moment, milkshake sweating in her hands, heart pounding in her ears. Then she heard Sophie's voice, light and careless. "Lily, oh, we didn't think you'd actually come. It's just a small thing. Don't take it personally." Lily smiled, that tiny, trembling smile people wear when they're trying not to break, and mumbled, "It's okay," before walking out. The milkshakes melted in her hands, and that's when it hit her. She had never really been part of them. She had just been standing close enough to believe she was. That night, lying in bed, Lily stared at her ceiling and whispered to herself, "I think my friends were never really mine." And that was how the story of moving on began, not with revenge, not with anger, but with a quiet realization that sometimes losing fake friends is the first step to finding yourself. The weekend felt longer than usual. Lily had turned off her phone, not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't stand seeing the notifications that weren't meant for her. The group chat buzzed without her. Photos, memes, inside jokes. She wasn't tagged, wasn't mentioned. It was as if she'd never been part of it at all. At first, she told herself it didn't matter. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe Sophie and the others were planning to reach out later. But deep down, she knew better.
Every time her phone lit up, her heart jumped, only to sink when she saw it was just an app reminder, not a friend. The silence after their laughter was louder than anything she'd ever heard. By Sunday evening, she sat at her desk, staring at the half-finished scrapbook she'd been making for Sophie's birthday. It was full of pictures of them, sleepovers, movie nights, little notes like "Best days ever," scribbled in colored pens. She ran her fingers over the pages and felt something twist in her chest. Those smiles were real once, but maybe only hers had been. When she looked closer, she realized something strange. She was always the one holding the camera, the one on the edge of every photo, half cut off, half seen. That night, Lily took the scrapbook, closed it gently, and put it in the back of her closet. She didn't tear it up. She wasn't angry. She just wasn't ready to look at it anymore. Instead, she picked up a blank notebook. On the first page, she wrote in neat, careful letters. Chapter 1. How to move on from fake friends. Then beneath it, she wrote, 1. Stop chasing people who make you feel replaceable. 2. Don't confuse attention with affection. 3. Learn to love your own company again. When she capped her pen, a tear rolled down her cheek, not out of sadness exactly, but from the weight of understanding something she'd ignored for too long. The next morning, when Lily walked to school, she didn't take the same route as before. She chose a longer one, the one that passed the park where the air was quieter and she didn't have to pretend she was okay. It was strange walking alone, but it also felt calm, honest, and maybe, she thought, that's what healing sounds like. Silence that finally feels like peace. Monday morning arrived with that soft gray light that always made the world feel slower. Lily stood in front of the mirror, tying her hair back and staring at her reflection like she was meeting herself again for the first time. Her phone buzzed on the desk, a notification from social media. Curious, she unlocked it only to see a new post from Sophie. Picture, birthday planning crew. Love my real ones. And there they were, Sophie, Tara, and Mia, smiling, arms linked, the same cafe in the background where Lily had once stood holding those milkshakes. Her heart clenched. For a second, she thought about commenting something sarcastic or maybe unfollowing them all at once just to feel powerful. But instead, she just stared at the screen and whispered, "You can't heal by looking at the wound." So she did the hardest, quietest thing. She tapped unfollow. One name, then another, then the last. Her thumb hovered over for a moment before she whispered, "Goodbye," and locked the screen.
It felt strange at first, like deleting a piece of her own history, but also freeing, like unclenching a fish she didn't know she'd been holding. At school, she kept to herself. The girls were there, laughing by the lockers as always. Sophie waved casually when their eyes met, a wave that meant nothing and everything at once. Lily smiled politely, then walked past. No drama, no confrontation, just distance. At lunch, she sat in the courtyard under the big oak tree. Alone, but not lonely. For the first time, she noticed things she'd never paid attention to before. The pattern of sunlight through the leaves, the hum of bees near the flower beds, the quiet laughter of kids at another table. Her classmate, Ethan, sat down a few feet away, balancing his sketchbook on his knees. He'd always been quiet, like her. "Hey," he said after a moment, not looking up. "You don't usually eat out here." Lily smiled faintly. "Trying something new?" He nodded. "It's nice. Peaceful." They didn't say much else, but when the bell rang, Lily realized she didn't feel invisible, just understood. That afternoon, when she got home, she opened her notebook again and added a new line under her list. 4. Don't chase closure. Sometimes silence is the answer. 5. Let go, even if your hands are still shaking. Then she wrote one more thing. Small, but powerful. Today, I started walking out of a story that didn't deserve me. And this time, she didn't cry. She just breathed, and it finally felt like healing had begun. Tuesday felt quieter than usual, like the school hallways had swallowed all the noise she used to fill with nervous laughter. When Lily walked into English class, she froze for a second. Her seat, the one beside Sophie and Tara, was already taken. Tara was leaning close to Sophie, whispering something that made both of them giggle. Mia looked up, noticed Lily, then quickly looked away. There was one empty desk left, back row, by the window. Lily hesitated only a moment before walking toward it. The sunlight spilled over the desk, warm and golden. It wasn't where she used to sit, but somehow
It felt right. As class began, she tried to focus on the lesson, but her thoughts kept drifting. She remembered how it used to be, how she'd stay up late helping Sophie with homework, or write Tara's notes when she skipped class, or share snacks with Mia even when she forgot her own. She'd given so much of herself to people who only took, and now looking at them laughing like nothing happened, Lily felt something unexpected. Relief. She didn't have to try anymore. During a break, Ethan, yes, the same quiet boy from the courtyard, walked past her desk. He stopped, hesitated, and said softly, "You draw, right?" Lily blinked. "A little. Why?"
He smiled faintly, showing his sketchbook. "I need someone's opinion. You've got that kind of eye." Inside were sketches of people, tiny moments frozen in graphite. One page stopped her. It was a drawing of someone sitting under a tree, hair tied back, notebook open. Her heart skipped. "Is this me?" Ethan smiled. "Yeah, from yesterday." She didn't know what to say. Nobody had ever noticed her like that, not as decoration in a photo, not as background noise, but as a person. "It's beautiful," she said finally. He shrugged, but his smile reached his eyes. "So's the subject." That evening, Lily sat at her desk and thought about the way Sophie used to talk over her, how Tara laughed when she felt small, how Mia only called when she needed something, and for the first time, she didn't feel bitterness, she felt clarity. People show you who they are. You just have to stop editing the story to make them kinder. In her notebook, she wrote, "Sometimes the hardest truth is that not everyone deserves access to your kindness." 7. The people who make you feel invisible don't define your worth, they reveal theirs. She closed the notebook, leaned back, and smiled faintly. The empty desk at school didn't feel empty anymore. It felt open. By Thursday, Lily began to notice something new about her days. Space. The kind of space that used to be filled with messages, plans, and laughter that never really belonged to her. Now, her afternoons were quiet. And at first, the quiet felt strange, like standing in an empty room after everyone leaves. But little by little, it started to feel like freedom. That morning, she stood in front of her mirror longer than usual. The girl looking back at her seemed familiar, but distant, like someone she hadn't spoken to in a while. Her eyes were softer, her posture straighter. And when she smiled, it didn't look like the polite, practiced one she used to wear around her old friends. It looked real. She whispered to her reflection, "I'm still here." Later at school, Sophie passed her in the hallway. "Hey, Lily," she said in that same sugary tone she always used when she wanted to sound kind. Lily stopped. "Hey." "You've been quiet lately," Sophie said, tilting her head. "Everything okay?" For a moment, Lily almost fell back into the habit of explaining herself, of shrinking to make Sophie comfortable. But she didn't. She smiled politely and said, "Yeah, everything's actually great." And she walked away.
It was such a small exchange, but inside it felt like a victory. Not because she'd ignored Sophie, but because she hadn't needed her. At lunch, she sat under the oak tree again. Ethan joined her, sketchbook in hand. "You look lighter today," he said. "I think I am," she replied. "I stopped apologizing for things that weren't my fault." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "That's big. Most people never get there." They ate quietly for a while before he added, "You know, fake friends are like mirrors that only show you what's wrong. Real ones remind you what's right." That night, Lily wrote that exact line in her notebook. Then, under it, she added, 8. Don't chase validation from broken mirrors. 9. When you lose fake friends,
You make room for genuine ones, even if it's just you for now. She looked at her reflection one more time before bed. The same mirror, the same girl, but now she could finally see herself clearly. And this time she didn't whisper, "I'm still here." She whispered, "I'm finally back." The weekend came dressed in blue skies and soft breezes. Lily didn't have any plans. No group chats buzzing, no messages asking, "You comin'?" And yet she woke up feeling lighter than she had in months. Her mom noticed it too. "You're smiling more lately," she said over breakfast, pouring orange juice. Lily shrugged, smiling. "I think I'm just tired of being sad." After breakfast, she decided to take a walk to the park, the one she used to pass on her longer route to school. The benches were half shaded by trees, the fountain glimmered in the sun, and a few little kids were feeding ducks at the pond. It was peaceful in a way her old weekends never were. She sat on a bench with her notebook, letting the quiet wrap around her. The kind of silence that used to feel uncomfortable now felt like a friend. Steady, warm, kind. She wrote, "Sometimes peace doesn't come when everything is fixed. It comes when you stop letting the wrong people keep breaking you." As she looked up, she saw Ethan a few yards away, sketchbook balanced on his knee again. He looked up and waved. "You following me?" she teased when he walked over. "Maybe," he said with a small grin. "Or maybe this is just where the quiet people go to heal." They talked for hours, not about fake friends, not about hurt, but about art, music, and the weird things people notice when they actually start looking. When the sky turned pink, Ethan said, "You know, I think sometimes losing people is the only way you can meet the version of yourself you were supposed to be." Lily smiled softly. "Then maybe I'm finally meeting her." That evening, at home, she lit a small candle on her desk, the kind that smelled like vanilla and peace. She opened her notebook and wrote, 10. Healing isn't loud. It's the quiet moments when you finally feel safe with your own thoughts. 11. Fake friends take your energy. Real healing gives it back. She stared at those words for a long time before closing the notebook. The air around her was still. But this time, the quiet didn't mean loneliness. It meant home. By Monday morning, Lily felt almost like herself again. Or maybe someone better. The kind of person who could breathe without checking her phone for approval. But healing, she was learning, wasn't a straight line. That afternoon, during study hall, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mia. "Mia, hey, can we talk? It's not what you think." Lily stared at the screen, her stomach twisting. She hadn't heard from any of them since she walked away. For a second, her heart betrayed her, leaping with old hope. Maybe they'd realized how wrong they'd been. Maybe Sophie wanted to apologize. Maybe... She stopped herself. Old Lily would have replied immediately, desperate for closure. But new Lily took a breath and asked herself a question. Would this message bring me peace or pain? She left it unread. Still, it lingered in her mind all day. The what-ifs, the maybes, the curiosity. By evening, she finally opened it. The rest of Mia's message read, "We just miss you. Sophie was saying we should all hang out again. It wasn't personal, you know how she is." Lily's heart sank. It wasn't an apology. It was an excuse. She typed a reply, then deleted it. Then typed again, deleted again. Finally, she just wrote, "I appreciate the message, but I've moved on. Take care." And she hit send. Her hands were shaking, but it wasn't fear this time. It was strength. Minutes later, her phone buzzed again. Sophie had texted the group, "Wow, guess someone's too good for us now." Lily stared at it for a long time. Then she smiled. It didn't hurt. Not like it used to. She blocked the group chat, turned off her phone and opened her window. Outside, the night was calm. She breathed in the cold air, the kind that cleared your head and your heart at once. That night, she wrote in her notebook, 12. Not everyone who says I miss you means I'm sorry. 13. Closure isn't a conversation, it's a decision.
14. You don't owe anyone access to the peace you fought for. When she set her pen down, she realized something. The ghosts of fake friends only haunt you if you keep the door unlocked. She'd finally learned how to close it. The next morning, the air was cool and bright. Lily walked to school with her earbuds in, the kind of calm song playing that made her footsteps feel lighter. She wasn't walking to meet anyone. No rushing texts, no pretending to laugh at things that weren't funny. Just her and the morning. At her locker, she noticed Sophie and the others whispering nearby. She caught a few words, her name, a laugh, the same old script. But this time, it didn't sting. It didn't even surprise her. She shut her locker, adjusted her backpack, and walked away without a word. At lunch, she chose the courtyard again. The sunlight spilled across the grass, and the oak tree's shade fell over her like a quiet blessing. Ethan waved as he sat down beside her, pulling out his sketchbook. "What are you working on today?" she asked. He smiled. "A series called The Art of Letting Go. Just small drawings of people freeing things like kites, paper boats, birds." Lily tilted her head. "Why that theme?" "Because," Ethan said, "sometimes the hardest thing to hold on to is yourself. Letting go isn't about losing. It's about keeping what's real." She thought about that all day. That evening, Lily went through her old phone gallery. Pictures of her and her old friends filled the screen. Smiling faces, filters, fake laughter. For months, she'd been too afraid to delete them, thinking that erasing them meant pretending those moments didn't happen. But now she realized something. She could keep the lesson without keeping the pain. So she scrolled through each one, whispering softly, "Thank you, but goodbye," before deleting it. With every swipe, her chest felt lighter, as though she was peeling off old layers she didn't need anymore.
When she finished, she lit her small candle again, opened her notebook, and wrote, 15. Letting go isn't erasing. It's freeing space for better things to grow. 16. You can't reach for what's next if your hands are still holding what's gone. 17. Not everything you lose is a loss. As the candle flickered beside her, she smiled faintly. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't even sad. She was just becoming whole again. And that, she realized, was the quiet art of moving on. By midweek, something had shifted, subtle but steady. Lily didn't rush through the hallways anymore, trying to avoid anyone. She walked with her head high, her earbuds out, her eyes open.
People noticed. In English class, when the teacher announced the group project, Lily braced herself for the familiar shuffle, the quiet dread of being the one nobody picked. But before she could even worry, a girl named Grace, who sat 2 rows over, turned to her with a smile. "Hey, Lily, want to team up?" Lily blinked. Grace wasn't someone she'd ever really talked to before. She was soft-spoken, bookish, the kind of person who always carried a novel in her bag and smelled faintly of vanilla and paper. "Sure," Lily said, smiling back. They spent the period brainstorming ideas, and for once, it didn't feel forced. Grace listened when Lily talked. She didn't interrupt, didn't compete, she heard. By the end of class, they were laughing about how bad they both were at drawing graphs. It was simple, easy, real. At lunch, Ethan joined them under the oak tree, and Grace tagged along too. They talked about random things, favorite songs, weird teachers, and how cafeteria pizza should be classified as a science experiment. Lily caught herself smiling, really smiling. It didn't feel like pretending this time. It felt like belonging. Sophie walked by once, her group trailing behind her. She glanced at Lily, raised an eyebrow, and kept walking. But Lily didn't shrink this time. She didn't even flinch. Because now she wasn't trying to prove she wasn't lonely. She simply wasn't. That evening, she opened her notebook again. Her handwriting was steadier now, her words flowing easily. 18. The right people don't make you question your worth, they remind you of it. 19. Real friendships grow quietly, like roots. You don't see them forming, but one day they hold you steady. 20. Healing is when laughter comes naturally again. She underlined that last one twice. Then on a whim, she wrote, maybe moving on isn't walking away. Maybe it's just walking towards something better. And as she closed her notebook, she realized something beautiful. For the first time, her story wasn't about who had left. It was about who had arrived. The next week, Lily was feeling lighter. Between Grace's kindness and Ethan's quiet humor, her days had started to feel normal again. Better than normal even. She could laugh without checking if someone was laughing at her. She could speak without weighing him every word. But healing, as she was learning, has a way of testing itself. It happened on Thursday afternoon. The final bell had just rung and the hallway was a rush of noise. Lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking, laughter echoing. Lily was gathering her books when she heard a voice she hadn't heard up close in weeks. Lily, wait.
She turned. Sophie was standing there, holding her phone, her expression uncertain, something between guilt and pride. Lily froze. Hey. Sophie shifted her weight. So, listen, I've been thinking. Things got weird between us. I didn't mean for you to feel left out or whatever. You know how group stuff goes. There it was, the almost apology. The one that sounded nice until you realized it wasn't sorry, it was self-defense. Lily took a slow breath. Yeah, I know, she said calmly. But I think you did mean it. You just didn't think I'd notice. Sophie blinked, taken aback. Wow, okay. I was just trying to make peace. Lily nodded gently. Peace doesn't come from pretending nothing happened. It comes from honesty. Sophie looked away. You've changed. Yeah, Lily said softly. That was kind of the point. And with that, she turned and walked away. Not angry, not shaking, just done. That night, Lily sat at her desk with her candle flickering beside her notebook. She didn't feel sad. She didn't feel victorious. She just felt free.
She wrote, 21. Some people don't say sorry because they don't think they did anything wrong. And that's okay. You don't need their words to move on. 22. Forgiveness isn't letting them back in. It's letting yourself breathe again. 23. You can outgrow people without hating them. Growth doesn't always need bitterness. She leaned back in her chair and looked at the flame. For months, she'd waited for Sophie to say what she needed to hear. But now she realized she didn't need the apology. She'd already healed without it. And maybe that was the quietest kind of power there was. Friday morning felt different, the kind of morning that hummed with calm energy.
The sky was soft blue, the air smelled like fresh rain, and Lily caught herself humming while tying her hair. It was the first Friday in months that didn't start with the question, "Will they text me?" After school, Grace invited Lily and Ethan to her house to study for their upcoming English test. It wasn't a big thing, just snacks, music, and open notebooks. But to Lily, it felt like the kind of small, good thing that builds a new chapter. Grace's room was filled with string lights and stacks of novels. Music played softly from a speaker, an old acoustic song that made everything feel warm. "Okay," Grace said, flipping open her book. "I can't study in silence. We need a playlist. Any suggestions?" Ethan laughed. "If Lily picks the songs, we'll probably end up journaling about our feelings instead of studying."
Lily rolled her eyes, smiling. "And if you pick them, we'll fall asleep halfway through your sad boy guitar tracks." Grace laughed and said, "Perfect, emotional but cozy. I'll name it Healing Homework Vibes." They spent the evening half studying, half talking. Between quotes from novels and inside jokes, Lily realized something. She wasn't constantly checking her reflection in their reactions anymore. She could just be. At one point, Grace said, "I'm really glad we became friends, Lily. You make everything calmer." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, you have that peaceful energy that makes other people feel safe." Lily blinked. No one had ever described her that way before. Not fragile, not too sensitive. Safe. Walking home later, headphones in, she played the new playlist they'd made together. Each song felt like a piece of light stitched into the quiet. When she got home, she opened her notebook and wrote, 24. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room to matter. 25. Sometimes the right people see the quiet parts of you and call them beautiful. 26. The best friendships don't erase who you were, they help you return to yourself. She closed the notebook and let the music play. The old ache was gone now, replaced by something new, peace that didn't depend on anyone else. She smiled into the soft glow of her lamp and whispered, "I didn't lose friends. I just made space for real ones." Monday morning started like any other. Sunlight through the curtains, the smell of coffee downstairs, and the faint hum of the town waking up. Lily walked to school humming one of the songs from the Healing Homework Vibes playlist, her steps light and easy. At her locker, she noticed a poster taped up near the main hallway. "Senior Memories. Submit your photos for the yearbook." A small smile crept across her face. She used to dream about what that yearbook page would look like. A collage of all the best friends forever moments. Back then, she'd imagined Sophie's arm around her shoulder, Tara flashing peace signs, and captions filled with inside jokes. But that was before she realized not everyone who laughs with you is laughing for you. Still, curiosity tugged at her. During study period, she wandered into the computer lab where students were scrolling through uploaded photos. And there it was. A photo from Sophie's birthday party last year, the one Lily hadn't been invited to. There they were again, Sophie, Tara, and Mia posing with their milkshakes, big smiles, perfect lighting. Lily looked at it for a long time. But instead of pain, she felt nothing. Maybe even a little gratitude, because that photo wasn't hers anymore.
Belonged to a version of her that believed friendship meant trying harder instead of being accepted. She turned to the student editor and said, "Hey, can I upload a few photos too?" Later that afternoon, she added her own. Snapshots from the past few months, the day of Grace's house, the sketches Ethan had drawn, a blurry selfie under the oak tree with all three of them laughing. It wasn't posed or perfect. It was real. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, Lily sat by her window and flipped open her notebook. Old memories don't sting when you're busy making better ones. Then she wrote, 27. Some photos are reminders, others are proof. 28. The best friendships don't need filters. 29. Healing isn't about erasing your past. It's about reframing it. She closed the notebook and smiled. For the first time, she didn't feel like someone left out of the picture. She felt like someone finally in frame. And this time, it was exactly where she belonged. A week later, Lily woke up to a calendar notification she hadn't seen in months. Birthday, Sophie. For a moment, she just stared at the screen. It felt strange that something that once mattered so much now felt like a name written in dust. Last year, she'd spent weeks planning Sophie's gift, decorating cards, and saving her allowance for a bracelet she never even got thanked for. This year, she didn't feel the pull to text or scroll through their stories or even check if they posted about it. She just didn't care. And that realization made her smile. After school, she met Grace and Ethan at the cafe downtown. The place had twinkle lights hanging from the windows, and it smelled like caramel and cinnamon. "Guess what?" Grace said, sipping her latte. "I got accepted into the writing workshop this summer. They said I could bring a friend if I wanted." Lily's eyes widened. "That's amazing! Are you going?" "Only if you do," Grace said with a grin. Ethan smirked. "Looks like you're about to become famous poets or something." Lily laughed. "We'll see. I'm just happy to be around people who don't treat friendship like a competition." Grace smiled softly. "I used to have friends like that too, the kind that make you feel like you're auditioning to stay." Lily nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know exactly what that's like." They clinked their mugs together, a quiet little toast to better beginnings.
Later that night, back in her room, Lily saw that Sophie had posted photos from her birthday dinner. Same smiles, same group, same captions as always. But this time, she didn't feel replaced. She just felt free. She picked up her notebook and wrote, 30. When you stop checking if they miss you, you start finding the peace that missed you. Then she added beneath it, I didn't forget her birthday. I just remembered myself. She closed the notebook, leaned back in her chair, and whispered with a small, steady smile, Happy birthday, Sophie, and happy freedom to me. The candle beside her flickered softly, like applause for a quiet victory no one else could see. That night, she fell asleep not thinking about who wasn't there, but about the people and peace who finally were. The following Monday, the school halls buzzed with chatter about weekend parties and upcoming exams. Lily had her earbuds in, walking calmly through the noise when she heard a voice behind her, soft, hesitant, and a little too familiar. Lily, wait up. It was Mia. Lily turned slowly. Mia stood a few feet away, holding her phone, looking unsure for the first time Lily could remember. Hey, Lily said quietly. What's up? Mia exhaled. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Lily blinked. She hadn't expected that. Mia shifted awkwardly. I know I didn't stand up for you. Sophie can be a lot. And I went along with stuff I shouldn't have. I just didn't want to lose the group, you know? Lily nodded slowly. Yeah, I know. There was a long pause, the kind where old words and new silence collide. Mia's eyes were glossy. I didn't have to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I really liked you. You were always the real one. Lily smiled softly, not out of pity, but out of understanding. Thank you, she said. I forgive you, but I've moved on.
I hope you can too. Mia nodded, wiping her eyes. I will. She gave a small, sad smile and walked away. Lily stood there for a moment, her heart full but calm. It didn't hurt. It didn't reopen the wound. It just closed it properly this time. At lunch, she told Grace and Ethan about it. Grace smiled knowingly. You handled that perfectly. Lily shrugged. I didn't want to carry it anymore. Forgiving her was more for me than for her. Ethan nodded. That's how you win. Not by holding on, but by letting go without hate.
That evening, Lily sat by her window, pen poised over her notebook. The sky outside was streaked with pink and gold. She wrote, 31. When someone apologizes, you don't have to reopen the door. Sometimes it's enough to wave from your side of it. 32. Real strength isn't staying angry. It's healing quietly and walking away with peace. 33. Not everyone from your past is meant to return, but some deserve to leave without bitterness. She read her own words twice, smiling softly. It felt strange to realize that closure could sound like kindness. That night, as the last bit of sunlight faded from the sky, Lily whispered to herself, I didn't lose them. I released them. And for the first time, it felt completely true. By mid-April, everything around Lily seemed to slow down in the best possible way. The drama that once filled her days had gone quiet, replaced by things that actually mattered. Grades improving, laughter that didn't drain her, mornings that started without dread. It wasn't that life had suddenly become perfect. She still had bad days, times when old memories whispered, remember when you used to belong? But now she could answer those whispers with calm. I belong to myself now. One Friday after class, she and Grace sat in the library, finishing an essay. Ethan was sketching across the table, headphones in, lost in his own world. The three of them had fallen into an easy rhythm. Comfortable silence, honest conversation, small smiles that didn't need explaining. When they finished, Grace stretched and said, You ever notice how quiet friendship feels when it's real? No noise, no pretending? Lily nodded. Yeah, it's like breathing. You don't notice it until it's gone. Ethan grinned. That's your next poem right there. They laughed, but inside, Lily knew it was true. That weekend, she spent a Saturday morning at home cleaning her room. She found little pieces of the past, old notes from Sophie, bracelets from birthdays, pictures tucked inside drawers. She held each one for a moment, then placed them in a small box. Not to throw away, but to store. A collection of lessons, not losses. When she finished, her desk looked new again. Lighter. So did her heart. She sat down, lit her candle, and opened her notebook. Maybe peace isn't the end of the story. Maybe it's the quiet middle, the part where you finally stop running from yourself. Then she wrote, 34. Healing isn't dramatic. It's steady. 35. When peace replaces noise, you'll realize you were never broken, just crowded. 36. The right people don't compete for your attention. They protect your calm. She leaned back and looked at the sunlight spilling across the pages. For once, she didn't feel like she was writing to survive something. She was writing because she'd survived it. The middle of her story wasn't lonely anymore.
It was peaceful, and that, she thought, was the best kind of miracle. By the time May arrived, the town was alive with spring. Cherry blossoms lined the streets, and sunlight danced on the river like a moving promise. Lily had always loved this season, but this year, it felt different, as if she was seeing it for the first time. Walking to school, she noticed things she used to overlook: the rhythm of her footsteps, the warmth of the air, the way the morning light made the rooftops glow. It wasn't the world that had changed, it was her. At lunch, she and Grace sat outside, textbooks open but mostly ignored. Ethan joined them, holding a small stack of sketches. "I'm thinking about turning these into a mini art book," he said. "Would you guys help me with the captions?" Grace grinned. "Absolutely." Lily tilted her head. "What's the theme?" Ethan hesitated, then smiled. "New beginnings." Lily felt her heart lift a little. "Then count me in." They spent the rest of the afternoon scribbling ideas and doodles in the margins of his sketchbook. Every page felt like a fragment of all they'd built together, not from pain, but from peace. Later that evening, Lily took her usual walk through the park. She sat on her favorite bench, notebook open, watching the petals fall from the trees like tiny pink snowflakes. The air smelled like earth and possibility. She wrote slowly, carefully, each word a step forward. 37. Moving on isn't forgetting, it's remembering without pain. 38. The best part of healing is realizing how light your heart feels when you stop carrying what's not yours. 39. Sometimes the people who hurt you are the ones who taught you how to care for yourself. She closed the notebook and looked around at the world, at kids playing by the fountain, at the sun dipping behind the trees, at life just happening. For so long, she thought her story ended when her old friendships did. But now she saw it clearly. Endings are just doorways disguised as heartbreak. As she stood to leave, she whispered to herself, "The world didn't change. I did, and that's enough." And in that moment, the world really did feel new again. Summer was only a few weeks away, and everything in Lily's world seemed to bloom at once. The trees, the air, her own heart. The heaviness she used to carry had turned into something else: gratitude. One afternoon after school, Grace, Ethan, and Lily went to the small park by the river with iced coffees and notebooks. They spread a blanket under the oak tree and spent hours doing nothing and everything at once, talking, sketching, laughing until their stomachs hurt. At one point, Ethan said something so ridiculous that Lily laughed, really laughed, the kind of laugh that spills out without warning, deep and real.
It startled her for a moment, because she couldn't remember the last time she'd sounded like that. Grace grinned. "There it is." "There what is?" Lily asked, still catching her breath. "That laugh, the one that doesn't sound like you're checking if it's allowed." Lily blinked, smiling softly. "Yeah," she said. "I forgot what that felt like." They sat there as the sun melted into gold, and Lily thought about how much had changed. The girl who used to shrink herself to fit others now filled her own space effortlessly. Later that evening, when she got home, she opened her notebook again. The candle flickered beside her, a familiar ritual of peace. She wrote, 40. Laughter is how your soul celebrates freedom. 41. When you stop apologizing for your happiness, you finally start to heal. 42. The best revenge against fake friends is a life that doesn't need them. She paused, smiling at that last one, not out of bitterness, but truth. Then she wrote one more line. I'm not the girl they left behind. I'm the girl who kept going. She closed her notebook and looked out her window. Fireflies danced across the backyard like tiny sparks of joy. For the first time, Lily realized that she wasn't waiting for something good to happen anymore. She was already living it. And in that gentle, glowing moment, she understood moving on wasn't about proving they were wrong. It was about proving to herself that she was right to let go.
June sunlight streamed through the classroom windows, carrying the soft buzz of summer anticipation. The last few weeks of school always had that lazy golden feeling, where even the teachers seemed half in vacation mode. Lily was packing up her things after English class when a folded note slid onto her desk. It wasn't from Grace or Ethan. They both texted, never passed paper notes. Curious, she opened it. "End of year party at Sophie's. Everyone's invited. Hope you come. It'll be like old times." Her stomach tightened. She could picture it already. Sophie's backyard full of people, the same music, the same laughter. The same crowd that had once made her feel like an extra in her own life. For a few moments, Lily just sat there staring at the note. Old times. That was the phrase that caught her. The old times were exactly what she'd outgrown. At her locker, Grace noticed her holding the note. "You're not actually thinking about going, are you?" Lily gave a half smile. "Not really. I think they just want to prove something." Ethan shrugged. "Then prove something back, that you don't need it."
That night, the air was warm and sweet with the smell of summer rain. Lily sat by her open window, listening to the faint music drifting from across town. She knew Sophie's house was glowing with lights right now, people laughing, dancing, posting stories online. And for a brief moment, she wondered what it would feel like to walk in again, to pretend nothing had changed. But then she looked around her room, the sketches Ethan had given her, the poems she'd written with Grace, the candles and notebooks that felt like her own small sanctuary. She didn't miss the noise anymore. She loved the peace she'd built. Instead of getting dressed for a party that wasn't meant for her heart, Lily made herself a mug of hot chocolate and opened her journal. She wrote, 43. Not every invitation deserves a yes. 44. Some doors stay closed because peace lives on the other side. 45. Sometimes missing out means you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Then, beneath it, she added, I used to chase places where I didn't fit. Now, I create the ones where I belong. She smiled, closed her journal, and looked out at the soft shimmer of stars over the town. Somewhere out there, Sophie's party would fade into another night of noise. But here, in her quiet little room, Lily had something better. A life she didn't need to escape from anymore. The school year ended beneath a cloudless sky, sunlight spilling across the front steps as students cheered, tossed papers, and planned beach days. Lily stood with Grace and Ethan near the school gates, watching everyone rush into summer like birds finally freed from a cage. So, Grace said, sliding her sunglasses up, beach trip tomorrow? Ethan grinned. Only if Lily promises to actually swim this time instead of writing poetry about the waves. Lily laughed. No promises. They spent that afternoon walking through town, ice creams melting faster than they could eat them, laughter echoing off the warm pavement. For once, life didn't feel like something Lily had to hold together. It simply flowed. Later that night, she took her journal out to the porch. The air smelled of cut grass and freedom. Crickets hummed. A breeze tugged gently at the pages. She thought about the girl she'd been just months ago, heartbroken, confused, scrolling through photos that made her feel small. And now here she was, sitting beneath a peaceful sky, surrounded by people who didn't make her question her worth. She began to write, slowly, each word a soft truth. 46. Healing isn't loud. It happens in quiet moments when you realize you've stopped checking who's watching.
47. Freedom is when your happiness no longer depends on who texts first. 48. You know you've moved on when you can wish them well.
and mean it. She paused and smiled to herself. Then, almost without thinking, she whispered into the warm night, "I hope they're happy too." And she meant it, truly, because she finally understood moving on didn't mean pretending the past never existed. It meant no longer letting it decide her future. When she went inside, she placed her journal beside her bed and looked out the window one last time before sleeping. The moon hung low and full, silver light spilling across her floor. She smiled softly and whispered, "I made it through." And as the summer breeze swept through her curtains, it carried a quiet reply only her heart could hear. "Yes, you did." The next morning dawned bright and golden, sunlight painting everything with that first true shimmer of summer. Lily woke to Grace's text blinking across her phone screen. "Grab your swimsuit, poet! We're leaving in 30!" She laughed, threw her towel and notebook into a tote bag, and ran downstairs. Her mom was at the kitchen counter, smiling. "Beach day?" "Yeah," Lily said, tying her hair up. "With real friends this time." Her mom's smile widened, soft and proud. "That's my girl." The drive to the beach was a blur of wind, music, and laughter. Ethan had the windows down, his hair flying everywhere, and Grace was singing off-key to every song. Lily just watched the horizon stretch wide open, the road spilling into sky. When they arrived, the sea air hit her, salty, alive, endless. Waves rushed toward the sand, glittering under the sun. For a long moment, Lily just stood there, toes sinking into the warm sand, breathing it all in. It felt like peace had been waiting for her here. They spread their towels and dropped their bags, and Ethan immediately challenged them to a race to the water. "Loser buys lunch!" he shouted, already running. Lily laughed and sprinted after him, Grace trailing behind. The ocean was cold, but it felt good, like a reset. She dove into the first wave, came up gasping and laughing at the same time. It wasn't just the water that washed over her. It was the past, the hurt, the heaviness. When they finally collapsed on the shore, breathless and wet, Grace turned to her and said, "Promise me something, Lily." "What's that?" "Promise me you'll never let people like Sophie make you feel small again." Lily smiled, the sea breeze lifting her hair. "I promise."
That night, back home with sunburned shoulders and sand still clinging to her ankles, she opened her journal and wrote, 49. The ocean doesn't apologize for its waves, and neither should I. 50. The right people don't dim your light. They stand beside you in it. 51. Moving on isn't about running away. It's about running toward yourself. She added one final line for the day. Today the ocean reminded me, everything that's heavy can float if you let it. She closed the journal, a faint scent of salt still clinging to the pages, and smiled into the quiet. Because for the first time, she wasn't writing to escape her pain. She was writing to remember her peace. A few weeks into summer, the days melted together in the best way. Late mornings, iced coffee afternoons, and evenings filled with sunsets that seemed to last forever. Lily had found her rhythm. Mornings spent writing, afternoons with Grace and Ethan, nights filled with laughter instead of worry. But one evening, while she was rereading her favorite book on the porch, her phone buzzed. The name on the screen made her freeze for just a second. Sophie. For a moment, she just stared at it, the way you might look at a photograph from a life you barely recognize. She thought about ignoring it. Part of her wanted to, but something inside her said, you can read it without reopening the wound. The message was simple. Hey, Lily. I know it's been a while, I saw your story with Grace and Ethan. You look really happy. I'm glad. I guess I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. We were awful to you, and I didn't realize how much until now." Lily's heart didn't race. It didn't ache either. She just breathed in, slow and steady. The words were late, but they were honest, and that mattered. She thought for a while before typing back. "Thanks, Sophie. That means a lot. I hope you're doing okay too. I've moved on, but I wish you the best." She hit send, not for closure, but for clarity. Later, when she met up with Grace and Ethan for ice cream, she told them about it. Grace raised an eyebrow. "You replied?" Lily nodded. "Yeah, but not to fix anything. Just to finish it." Ethan smiled. "You're a lot stronger than you think, you know that?" Lily grinned. "I'm starting to." That night, she opened her journal under the soft hum of her bedside lamp and wrote,
52. When you heal, the past stops sounding like pain and starts sounding like lessons. 53. Some apologies arrive too late to rebuild, but right on time to release. 54. The best closure is peace, not conversation. And then she added, I don't hate her, I just don't need her anymore. That's how I know I'm free. She closed her journal, blew out her candle, and let the silence settle. Not heavy, not empty, just calm. For the first time, she realized she didn't want her old life back. She had outgrown it, and that was the truest kind of forgiveness there was. It was the heart of July, the kind of warm, dreamy evening when the world glowed like it had been brushed in gold. The air smelled of grass and smoke, and the sound of cicadas buzzed softly in the distance. Grace's family had invited Lily and Ethan to a backyard campfire night. When Lily arrived, fairy lights glimmered between the trees, and a circle of mismatched chairs surrounded a crackling fire. Someone handed her a marshmallow on a stick, and for a moment she just stood there, taking it all in. It was the kind of night that used to make her ache for company she didn't have, but now she had everything she needed. Ethan strummed softly on a guitar. Grace was laughing with her little brother, and Lily just felt present. No ghosts, no what-ifs, no second-guessing her place in the world. When Ethan passed her the guitar, she shook her head. No way! I can't play! He smiled. Then sing. You always hum when you write. She blushed. I don't sing in front of people. Grace nudged her gently. You're safe here. Something in those words broke her hesitation. So she sang, a small, uncertain voice at first, but soon steady and true. The song wasn't perfect, but it was hers. When she finished, there was a soft cheer and the crackle of the fire filling the spaces between their laughter. That was beautiful, Grace said, smiling. Lily shrugged, but her heart was glowing. I used to think I needed a crowd to be heard. Turns out I just needed the right listeners. Later, as the fire dimmed to glowing embers, Lily leaned back in her chair and looked up at the stars. They shimmered above her, countless, constant, untouchable. She pulled her journal from her bag, the pages faintly warm from being close to the firelight, and wrote, 55. You don't find your voice in the noise. You find it in the quiet moments when you feel safe. 56. Real friends don't just hear you, they listen.
The best nights aren't loud. They're peaceful, honest, and shared with the right people. She looked up again, the stars reflecting in her eyes, and whispered, I'm not just healed, I'm happy. The fire crackled softly in response, like the universe agreeing. That night, as she lay in bed, the faint smell of wood smoke still in her hair,
Lily realized something beautiful. The girl who used to cry for fake friends was now singing under real stars. And that, she thought with a smile, was everything she'd ever needed. By late July, Lily's world had settled into a soft rhythm. Mornings that began with sunlight streaming across her desk, afternoons spent with Grace and Ethan, and quiet evenings where she wrote under the hum of her bedside lamp. Her journal had grown thick, its pages filled with poems, lessons, doodles, and coffee stains. Every word inside it was a map of where she'd been, from heartbreak to healing, from silence to peace. One afternoon, she and Grace met at the cafe downtown. It was one of those slow summer days when time seemed to stretch like taffy. Grace sipped her iced latte and leaned across the table. "So, how's the journal coming along?" she asked. Lily smiled, almost full. Ethan, who was sketching on a napkin beside them, looked up. "You're basically writing a book at this point." Lily laughed. "A book about what? Me crying and then drinking iced coffee?" Grace shook her head. "No, a book about how you stop needing the wrong people to feel whole." That night, her words echoed in Lily's mind. Maybe Grace was right. Maybe all this time she hadn't just been healing, she'd been documenting it. So she decided to start something new. On the first blank page at the back of her journal, she wrote in big letters, "The Summer Journal, Things Worth Keeping." And underneath, she began a new list, not about loss, but about life. 1. Laughter that doesn't come with fear. 2. Friends who stay even in silence. 3. The smell of rain on warm pavement. 4. The strength to say no without guilt. 5. The peace of being enough. She paused, pen hovering, and smiled. The list wasn't long yet, but it didn't need to be. It was a start. The next morning, she met Ethan and Grace at the park. They read her list aloud as sunlight filtered through the trees. Grace added, "Number 6, people who make you feel seen." Ethan grinned. "Number 7, Lily finally swimming instead of just writing about it." They all laughed, and Lily added both to the list.
Later that night, she sat by her window again, the summer air drifting through the curtains. She wrote one final line before bed. "Life gets better the moment you stop editing yourself for people who never deserve to read you." She closed the journal and placed it beside her pillow. Outside, crickets sang, and for once, the sound didn't remind her of being alone. It reminded her of being alive. August arrived dressed in color. Banners, music, and sunlight spilling across the small-town fairground. It was the day of the annual summer fair, a tradition Lily had almost forgotten. Last year, she'd gone with Sophie, Tara, and Mia. She remembered how Sophie made them take photos at every booth, how Tara complained about the rides, and how Lily had laughed even when she didn't feel like it, just to belong. This year was different. She went with Grace and Ethan. No pretending, no matching outfits, no fake smiles, just the three of them and a pocket full of tickets. The fair smelled of popcorn and cotton candy, and the sky was painted with lazy clouds. They spent hours playing games, losing more than they won, and laughing until their sides hurt. Ethan nearly fell off the Ferris wheel trying to get a photo of the sunset, and Grace screamed through the haunted house while Lily couldn't stop laughing behind her. It was chaotic, messy, real. As the sun began to set, the three of them sat on the grassy hill overlooking the fairground. The lights below shimmered like fireflies, and music from the carousel drifted through the warm air. "This," Grace said softly, "feels like a movie." Lily nodded. "The good kind, the one you don't want to end." Ethan threw a popcorn kernel at them. "You two are way too sentimental." Lily grinned. "And you're lucky we let you hang out with us anyway." They all laughed again, not forced, not fragile, just free.
When Lily got home that night, her shoes dusty and her heart full, she pulled out her journal and wrote, "The best memories don't need perfect people, just genuine ones." Peace isn't boring. It's laughter that doesn't leave bruises. The people who make you forget to check your phone are the ones worth keeping. Then, at the bottom of the page, she added a small note to herself. 1 year ago, I stood on the outside of the fair, wondering why I wasn't enough to be invited. Tonight, I laughed so hard I almost fell off the Ferris wheel. That's how healing works. Slowly, quietly, and then, all at once. She closed her journal, smiled at the faint carnival music still echoing in her ears, and whispered, "I'm finally living the moments I used to wish for."
And somewhere in the distance, fireworks began. Bursts of gold and silver across the sky, like a celebration just for her. A week after the fair, the nights began to cool. The first hint of autumn slipped into the summer air, soft and golden. Lily sat at her desk one evening, the window open, letting the breeze move through her curtains. Her journal was almost full now. The pages that had once caught her tears were now heavy with laughter, poetry, and truth. She ran her fingers along the edge of the book, thinking of everything it had witnessed, every hurt, every healing. Something in her heart whispered that it was time to write a letter, not to Sophie, not to her old friends, but to the one person she had ignored for far too long, herself. She took out a blank sheet of paper and began to write slowly, carefully. Dear me, you've been through more than you let people see. You gave love to those who didn't know how to hold it, and you still found the courage to stay kind. You learned that fake friends can teach real lessons, that not everyone deserves your loyalty, but everyone deserves your forgiveness. You cried for people who never looked back, and that's okay, because now you look forward. I'm proud of you, not for being unhurt, but for healing anyway. Keep choosing peace over approval. Keep shining, even when no one's clapping. You are not who they left. You are who you became after. With love, the you who finally learned her worth. When she finished, Lily folded the letter and placed it between the last few pages of her journal. Then she whispered, "I forgive you too," to the version of herself who once begged to be seen. Later that night, she walked to the bridge near her house, the same one she used to cross on her loneliest evenings. The moon shimmered over the water, gentle and familiar. She looked up and said softly, "Thank you for not giving up on me." The water below caught her reflection, not the sad, searching girl she once was, but someone peaceful, certain, whole. When she returned home, she wrote one final note for the night. 62. Healing ends where self-love begins. 63. You can't move on from fake friends until you learn to be your own. 64. The best I love you you'll ever say is to yourself. She closed her notebook, smiling through quiet tears, not from pain, but from pride. For the first time in her life, Lily didn't just feel better, she felt complete.
By late August, the air smelled faintly of rain and new beginnings. The town's art center was hosting its annual Voices of Summer exhibit, a small showcase where anyone could share a piece of their creativity, poems, paintings, songs, or sketches. Grace was the first to suggest it. "We should all submit something," she said one afternoon, sprawled on the grass at the Proc. "Ethan, your drawings. Lily, your writing. It's perfect." Ethan rolled his eyes but smiled. "Only if you read one of your poems, too," Grace groaned. Fine, but Lily goes first. Lily froze. The idea of standing in front of people and reading her words out loud made her palms sweat. But then she remembered how it felt the first time she read to herself and believed the words. That had been the real start of her healing. Okay, she said finally. Let's do it. A week later, the three of them arrived at the little art center, their hearts racing and their hands full of dreams. The room smelled like coffee and canvas paint. Strings of lights hung from the ceiling, and the walls were lined with artwork from people of all ages. Ethan's sketches were framed on one wall, portraits of quiet moments. A girl sitting under a tree, friends laughing at the beach, a reflection in a window. Grace's poem, handwritten in elegant cursive, was pinned beside it. We are not what they forgot. We are what we remembered to become. When it was Lily's turn, she stepped up to the microphone. Her voice trembled at first, but she looked at Grace and Ethan in the front row, smiling, nodding, and something inside her steadied. She unfolded the paper she'd brought. It wasn't a new piece. It was the letter she'd written to herself. Her voice carried softly through the room. You are not who they left. You are who you became after. By the time she finished, the audience was still. Then came the applause, gentle, genuine, full of warmth. Afterwards, strangers came up to her to say, "That felt like my story too." Lily smiled through tears. Then maybe that's why I had to live it. That night, back home, she opened her journal once more and wrote, 65. Sometimes your story heals others in the exact way it once broke you. 66. You don't have to shout to be heard. Truth carries its own volume. 67. Courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about speaking anyway. She closed the journal and whispered into the quiet, I didn't just move on. I grew roots. And for the first time, she realized her healing had become her art.
The days after the exhibition felt soft and golden, like the world itself was proud of her. People from school stopped Lily in the hallways to say how her words had touched them. Even teachers smiled knowingly, the kind of smile that said, you found yourself. But one afternoon, something new arrived in her email inbox. A message with the subject line, Congratulations, Lily. Accepted. Her heart jumped. It was from the Regional Youth Writing Program, a summer mentorship she had applied to months ago and completely forgotten about. She read the first lines twice, then 3 more times, just to be sure. She'd gotten in. Grace! Ethan! She shouted into the group chat, sending a screenshot. Grace replied first, Yes! I knew it! I'm screaming! Ethan added, Knew all that journaling would pay off. Also, I expect a signed copy of your first book. She laughed so hard she cried, not from disbelief, but from joy that didn't feel borrowed or shared. It was hers. That evening, she sat outside with her journal, the sky glowing in streaks of rose and gold. The acceptance letter rested beside her, like a promise from the universe. A year ago, she had been staring at a phone that never lit up with her name. Now, the world itself was calling her forward. She wrote, 68. When you stop chasing the wrong people, the right opportunities start finding you. 69. Healing doesn't just give you peace, it gives you purpose. 70. The girl who once doubted her voice is now being invited to use it. Then she turned to a new blank page and wrote at the top, Next chapter, tomorrow. She sat for a moment, breathing it in, the smell of summer grass, the hum of crickets, the way the air seemed to shimmer with possibility. When her mom came out with 2 cups of tea, she smiled softly. You look happy, she said. I am. I think I finally figured out what comes after moving on. Her mom tilted her head. What's that? She looked up at the sky, stars flickering awake one by one.
You start moving toward what's meant for you. They sat together in quiet pride, tea warm in their hands, night gentle around them. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't scare Lily. It invited her.
2 weeks later, Lily stood on the train platform with her journal in her backpack and butterflies in her stomach. The city skyline shimmered in the distance, tall and daring, a horizon that seemed to whisper, "Welcome to the next chapter." Grace and Ethan had come to see her off. Grace hugged her tight, eyes glistening. "You're going to crush it, and text us every day." Ethan handed her a small sketch. It was of the three of them under their favorite oak tree, laughing. "So you don't forget where your story began," he said. Lily smiled, slipping it into her notebook. "As if I ever could." The train whistle blew. She boarded, waving, as the platform slid away, her friends growing smaller, but her heart somehow bigger. The city loomed ahead, loud, alive, unknown. When she arrived, she was met by a group of other young writers, nervous and hopeful like her. They gathered in a small studio lined with books and windows overlooking the busy streets. The instructor, a soft-spoken woman named Miss Parker, greeted them warmly. "I want you to think of this week as a conversation with your past. What would the younger version of you need to hear?" That night in her dorm room, Lily opened her journal and thought about that. What would the younger version of her need to hear? The one who sat alone in the cafe, wondering why she wasn't enough. She wrote slowly, deliberately. "You didn't do anything wrong. The ones who made you feel small were just too afraid of your light. Keep shining anyway." As she wrote, a tear slipped down her cheek, but it wasn't sadness, it was gratitude. During the workshop the next day, she shared the piece aloud. The room was quiet when she finished, the kind of silence that meant every word had landed somewhere deep. Miss Parker smiled and said, "That's what real writing is, Lily. Healing disguised as art." That evening, she stood by her dorm window watching the sunset melt into the city lights. She felt small but infinite, like every pain she'd ever felt had built this moment. She opened her notebook again and wrote, 71. The world opens when you do. 72. Growth feels scary because it's proof you're outgrowing the cage. 73. Don't chase what's comfortable, chase what feels true. She smiled, closed her journal, and whispered to her reflection in the glass, "This is what moving on looks like." The city pulsed beneath her, alive with dreams, and for the first time, hers were part of it. By the last evening of the writing program, the city felt almost like home. The lights outside the tall windows shimmered like quiet applause, and the smell of old books and warm tea filled the small auditorium where the students were gathered.
It was reading night, the final event, when everyone would share one piece they'd written during the week. Lily sat in the second row, clutching her journal to her chest, her heart thumping like it was remembering every fear she'd ever had about being seen. Miss Parker stepped onto the stage and smiled. "Writing is courage on paper," she said. "Each of you has found your voice here. Tonight, let's listen to it." One by one, students went up to read, stories of loss, love, and growing up. Some were nervous, some confident, but all of them were brave. When it was Lily's turn, her hands trembled as she walked to the microphone. She opened her journal to the piece she'd written that first night, the letter to her younger self. She took a deep breath, found Grace and Ethan's sketch tucked inside the pages,
and began to read. You didn't do anything wrong. The ones who made you feel small were just too afraid of your light. Keep shining anyway. Her voice steadied as she continued. You will lose people who were never meant to stay, but you will find others who don't ask you to shrink. And someday you'll look at your reflection and realize you didn't need fixing. You only needed freedom. When she finished, the room stayed still for a long, beautiful second. Then came the applause, not thunderous, not overwhelming, but warm and real. Afterwards, Miss Parker hugged her. You write like someone who's lived 1,000 quiet battles, she said softly, and you survived every one. Walking back to her dorm later, city lights glowing around her, Lily thought about how far she'd come. From standing in the shadow of fake friends to standing under real light, her own. She opened her journal on the train ride home and wrote, 74. The moment you stop seeking validation is the moment your voice becomes unstoppable. 75. Sometimes the hardest stories to tell are the ones that heal you the most. 76. When your past stops hurting, that's how you know it's truly behind you. The train rumbled beneath her, steady and sure. She looked out at the moving landscape, the hills, the rivers, the small towns passing by, and whispered, I'm not going back. I'm only going forward. And this time, it wasn't a wish. It was a promise. The morning Lily returned home, the town looked the same. Quiet streets, soft sunshine, the smell of fresh rain on the pavement. But she wasn't the same girl who had left. She carried her worn leather journal under her arm, its edges frayed, its pages full. Every entry inside was a step she'd taken away from pain and toward peace. Grace and Ethan were waiting for her at the station, holding a handmade sign that read, "Welcome back, author," in messy, colorful letters. Lily laughed, running to hug them both. You guys are ridiculous. Ridiculously proud, Grace said, squeezing her. Ethan added with a grin, So, when's the book release? They spent the day catching up, talking, eating pizza, laughing till their cheeks hurt. It felt simple, safe, right. That evening, as the sun melted behind the hills, Lily walked to her favorite bridge, the same one she had crossed 100 times before. The river below shimmered with gold, reflecting the light of a world that had waited patiently for her to grow into it. She leaned on the railing, journal open, and flipped to the very first page. The ink was faded now, but the words were still there. Chapter 1. How to Move On from Fake Friends. Her eyes softened. She smiled. And beneath it, she added one final line in steady handwriting. Final chapter. How to Find Yourself. She turned to a fresh page, the only one still blank, and began to write slowly, letting her heart speak. Once upon a time, I thought losing people meant losing myself. But it was the opposite. The moment they walked away, I started walking toward who I was meant to be. Healing wasn't loud. It didn't come in one day. It came in mornings that didn't hurt, in friends who listened, in laughter that didn't sting, and in realizing I didn't need to be chosen to matter. I forgive them. I thank them. Because they taught me how to stand alone. And standing alone is what led me here. When she finished, she closed the journal and pressed it against her chest. The wind rustled through her hair, and for a moment it felt like the world itself was whispering, "You did it!" Grace and Ethan called to her from the end of the bridge, waving her over. Lily smiled, tucking the journal under her arm.
She took one last look at the river, at the sky, at the reflection of the person she had become. And then she crossed the bridge, not running from the past, but walking fully into her future.